Hey, what's up guys? My name is Michael Westbrook. As always, thank you for being here. In this video, we're going to be walking through a brand new pedal board video for a board here in my home studio, as well as taking a closer look at some new power supplies from Walrus Audio. These are a part of their Canvas line, which is kind of a utility line. It's all stuff that every guitar player needs, right? Power supplies, tuners, DI boxes, all that kind of stuff. So we'll be taking a closer look at all the features on these. Lots of cool features that I haven't seen on power supplies that come in several different sizes. We'll get into all that later. I'm going to be using these power supplies on a brand new pedal board here for my home studio. I've been using a smaller board here at home because my main board stays out on the road a lot of the times. A lot of times I don't even bring it home, or it stays in storage in Nashville. So having a smaller board here at home is super helpful for making videos or doing remote tracking. The thing is that because it's been a smaller board, I have to change stuff out. I'm constantly, swapping different things in and out or adding stuff. And so I want to build a slightly larger board that has more options and will just help me work quickly and efficiently. Before we get into it, I also want to say that I'm not a professional pedal board builder. I'd love to have somebody like XTS or Brian O'Million build me a board, but it's just not the route I'm going. I'm going to be using a lot of stuff that I already have, including cabling and different risers and different things like that. I'm going to try to remake as few cables as possible. The goal for me is just to do this very cheaply, DIY, using stuff that I have to make it quick and easy. All that being said, I've been doing this for a while, and so I think I do have a few tips and tricks that might be helpful for you guys who are building your own boards or trying to make things a little neater. All right, let's get into it. All right, so here we have the familiar carnage that is a pedal board build. Here on the left, you can see that's the old board. That's what I was using. Obviously, significantly smaller. I was just having to change stuff in and out a lot. A lot of the pedals you see on the new board here are ones that would, come on and off, or I would want to change, in and out. So I'm hoping that I'll have to do far less of that. Now, so a couple things. One, just the board in general, right? What I did is I went to Home Depot. I bought a 1/2-inch sheet of plywood, a 2-foot by 4-foot sheet. I cut that down to 14.5 by 27. I thought that would be a good size, but it will also fit in a case that I already have if I did need to take it somewhere. Now, after I got that, I sanded down the edges just a little bit, just to kind of knock off the rough edges. And then what I like to do with these plywood pedal boards is I actually paint them with a you can buy it pretty much anywhere that has spray paint and stuff. It is a truck bed liner paint. It comes in like a spray can, and the nice thing about that one is that it's textured. Which there's pros and cons to that, but it's textured, so it has a little bit of a rough feel to it, and it makes it a little more durable. So I've had good luck with that. The only con really is that sometimes like Velcro and dual lock, because it is textured, doesn't want to stick as well, but it works pretty well for me. I haven't had too many issues as long as you let that stuff kind of sit and really adhere to it over time before you try ripping it off. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to be using the brand new Walrus Audio power supplies, the Power 5 and the Power 8. I will say that these things feel pretty solid. They're lightweight, but they don't feel flimsy. The jacks and everything feel really solid. It's kind of unlike some other power supplies that are on the market that to me have always felt flimsy. The jacks always felt flimsy. The housing, didn't feel super solid, and they're not cheap. So I'm happy to see that these are really solid feeling, but small and lightweight. The number differentiation on these has to do with the amount of 9-volt power jacks that are on it. The 5 has 5, 8 has 8. There's also a 15 and a 22 model. Now on the 5, you've got one that switches between 9, 12, and 18, and then on the 8, you have two jacks that do that. A couple of cool features that are on the upper ones, I think it's the 8, 15, and the 22. They both have a USB-C port, so you can charge your phone or a pad. And then they also have a power meter. This is to make sure that you're not pulling too many milliamps with high requirement pedals. That being said, each slot will power 500 milliamps. So I think you would have to have a lot going on to kind of max out these units. The other cool feature with these is that they're all linkable with a 24-volt cable. So that's what I'm going to do on this board. I'm going to link the 5 and the 8 together using the 24-volt cable, and they all are able to do that. So, you know, whatever your needs, how many ever you need, you can kind of piece together different models to suit your pedal board. I want to talk about one last thing before we get into the build, and that's what I'm using to secure the pedals to the board. I'm going to be using dual lock. For years I used Velcro, which worked fine, but it never was a perfect solution. Whether it was the Velcro part or the adhesive part, it just never seemed to hold great. A few years back I started using dual lock. Now, there's a few things to know about dual lock, and there is a specific type, or actually 2 specific types, that you want to use for your pedal board. One of the reasons that you want to use this specific type is because it uses a high temp adhesive. It's made for kind of outdoor uses, and this makes sure that if you leave your pedal board in a car or a hot band trailer, that the adhesive doesn't come unglued or come undone when it gets hot. I think the adhesive on this specific type of dual lock is rated up to like 200 degrees or something crazy like that. I'll link this down in the description. There's 2 different kinds you want to use, but the model numbers are SJ3550 and SJ3551. Now, the difference between the 2 types has to do with how many of the little like hook, or they're like little mushroom head things, how many of those there are per square inch. You want to use a 250 and a 400, or you can use a 250 and a 250, but if you really want them on there really well so they don't come off, the 250 and the 400 is the way to go. That's typically what I use. Now on this board, because it is in the studio and I'm not necessarily taking it on the road, I probably could get away with the 250 and the 250, but it's just kind of what I'm used to and what all my pedals have on it at this point. I put the 400 on my board, and then I put the 250 on the back of the pedal. You can tell the difference between the 2 because the 250, the lines are kind of wavy, whereas the 400, everything is straight on it. I will say, once you connect the 250 and the 400, you're going to have a hard time getting the pedal off, especially depending on how much dual lock you use. So a lot of times people recommend just putting it in the corners of the pedal. You don't want to do big long strips. On some smaller pedals I will do longer strips like that, but you really don't need to use a lot of this to get the pedals on there you know, really well and staying on, hanging on. All right guys, I've got the pedal board down here in my basement. You might hear my wife walking around upstairs or running water, different things. I wanted to talk about a couple of things on the board here just that are helping me organize, helping me to put things where they're accessible. One is the shelf that the H9 and the Big Sky are on. That's an old shelf that I had from an old pedal board that I had pulled off. But a lot of times if I'm building a new board, check out on Reverb Fix pedal boards. They make all kinds of risers, all kinds of shelves. I think they make like a hinged shelf that's super handy to be able to organize stuff underneath it. This is not hinged or anything. I'm just going to have to, I'm going to put the power supplies under there and then, you know, mount it. Not as easy as the hinged ones, but you know, it'll work. The other thing that I'm doing that works really well and is super cheap and effective is using 1-inch aluminum channel like this. This is a piece that I've used in the past. You can see it's already got dual lock on it. I basically use these as risers. So these first 3 pedals, I'm not sure if you can see on in this particular shot, but the compressor, fuzz, and EQ right here that are going to be kind of in the initial part of the chain, those are on this this aluminum channel. It's super lightweight and it raises it up 1 inch. I just put dual lock on the board, dual lock on both sides of the aluminum, and then you know, have the pedals attached to that. This essentially makes a non-permanent riser that I can kind of move around and put in different places. It also allows me to run cables underneath or position jacks in a way so that maybe they can just go straight down. It can save me space. Actually on the Red Witch pedal here, again, I'm not sure if you can see it in the shot, but this actually will raise these pedals above where the power jack goes in, so I can get them closer together and conserve space. There are a couple of other things you guys might have noticed from the shot earlier, and that's a lack of a tuner, a volume pedal, which I'm a massive user of. I pretty much have to have one on my board. And then there's a black box on here that's not labeled, it just has a bunch of jacks on it. Okay. The reasons for those are the tuner and volume pedal. I actually have a smaller little portable board. It's made out of the exact same stuff, actually, wood and sprayed. I have that kind of set aside because I will use that for pedal steel or different things, and I can kind of move that around and then plug from that board to my main pedal board. That just gives me some flexibility. I don't have to move this at all, but my volume pedal I can put in a place that's going to be convenient and easy to use for me. This black box, I'm basically using, this is an old box as well, something that I pulled from an old pedal board that's been sitting around. It basically is an interface box, right? It has an in and out jack, but then the thing that I'm actually using on it, I'm not even using all of the stuff all the jacks that it has on it. I'm using it as an insert point into the pedal. So basically there's an in and an out jack here, and then there's an in and an out on the other side that'll be on the top of the pedal board. This will allow me to insert any kind of pedal that maybe I want to try or need for a session or something I might be demoing on YouTube. I also created basically like a 9-volt pass-through. So I'll plug power into one side of that box, and then there's a jack on the other side, and I can run power from there into whatever pedal I'm using, assuming it uses 9 volts. Now I'm putting all the pedals back on the board. I'm just trying to get everything situated, making sure I have the cabling that I need. I'm going to start attaching the dual lock and really start putting it all together. But one thing that I noticed just when I was checking all of that stuff is the power cables that come with the new Walrus power supply. The right angle side in particular is just smaller, and I think that's going to be a big help. It doesn't seem as wide from this way, and then it doesn't seem like it's going to stick out as far from the pedal once you plug it in. And I think this is going to be a big help when it comes to pedals with top mounted jacks, especially because sometimes, depending on what 1/4-inch jacks you're using here, it can be really tight fit, and sometimes even the jacks can push on that power plug in the middle, and over time it's just going to wear it out and cause issues. So I'm happy to see that the new cables from Walrus are smaller, and they should alleviate some of those problems. So I just finished wiring up the board, and I pulled it up here in my home studio. Everything's working like it should. Power is quiet. I haven't really been able to put it through its paces because it's after midnight here. It's getting late, but I'm definitely going to dig in a little more tomorrow. I also checked out the power meter on the power supply, and it's barely even registering at 50%. I can't even tell. It might be the LED below it that's kind of shining up into that 50%, but whatever the case, it's having no issue dealing with all of these pedals. Overall, I really dig the new Walrus power supplies. I like all the options. They seem, pretty solid. They're lightweight. I also like the cables. I think them being smaller and more flexible is going to be really convenient and really helpful when putting together boards. Now, all that being said, I do have one slight beef with these power supplies, and that's that they use a wall wart like this. All of the different models all use a wall wart like this. So I don't have it plugged in right now, but you would plug in like a normal IEC cable into this part. And then this, I think, comes out as 24 volts here that you plug into each of the power supplies. I think maybe technically this is the power supply, and I don't know if that's distribution. I don't know. I'm not going to get technical, but this does say power supply on it. I don't love these. I mounted this part of it to my board, but then I had to deal with this long cable, even though it was right beside the other part of it. I'm just not a huge fan of having a wall wart. Also, the fact that where this plugs in is on the same side as all the 9-volt, plugins there. If someone was going to just use this separately, I would think you would want it on the other side, maybe so you could plug it in, on the back of your board. Again, for me, that's not really going to pose a problem because I have it all kind of mounted there, but the fact that I had to mount this underneath the board, to me, I'm not the biggest fan of. I would rather have, Strymon, the way they do it is they have on their larger units, they have the IEC, and then you connect these smaller units with the 24-volt cable. Now, there are trade-offs, right? I mean, it cuts down on the size. Not having all of this stuff in the unit makes the units be able to be really small, really lightweight. So I understand there's a lot of flexibility with that. Also, too, if this part were to go bad, then you can just replace this and keep using the other part. I would assume, having them separate allows you to kind of replace what breaks, and you know, and that's a pro. I mean, things go bad and you use things for long enough, there are going to be issues. I could see for some people that the lack of an IEC in the unit, in the main unit, and the use of a wall wart is going to be a deal breaker. But I think there are ways around it. Obviously, you guys saw if you caught it, I'm just mounting this on the board, and it kind of honestly functions just like if the IEC were part of the main unit. I kind of wish that Walrus offered a unit that had an IEC built into it, similar to something like Strymon does, and then being able to daisy chain. I think the aspect of being able to daisy chain different sizes together, that's a huge win, and I think a lot of people are going to love that. That's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you for checking out this video. Thank you to Walrus for sending me the new canvas power supplies. Overall, these things are great. Lots of great features and provide great clean power. All right, until next time, I'll see you out there.